What is up, Buttercups, and welcome to the finally the video that everybody's probably been waiting for a couple of years. It's another Dovahzul episode, and it's going to be really awesome because today we're learning to write in it. This is going to be part 1 of 2. Episode 2 will be covering special characteristics plus my own special inventions to kind of help the people who want to write in English without learning the language, so you're just using it as sort of secret code in notes or something like that. And these characters of mine that will be in episode 2 should help that out. Before I get started, I wanted to let you guys know about an awesome app I found earlier today, actually. It's called Dovahzul Translator. It's an app on the Android market. I don't know if it's on Apple, but I found it and I thought it was really cool. So it's definitely an app worth checking out. Make sure to check it out. It's got like 10,000 downloads right now, which is pretty sweet. And considering it's called Dovahzul, which is the name I invented for the language, I'm very flattered. So, but let's just jump right in. Let's get right into this and start learning our language here. So the first character that we're going to learn, and keep in mind these characters have to be very specifically written because a lot of them resemble each other and there's a few key differences to tell them apart. And I will be explaining them as we go, but let's just jump right in here. And we'll start with A. You want to start with a pretty long stroke at an angle right there. A kind of one just straight down, a smaller stroke at the top. Kind of want to come down and touch this corner right here. And then you want to dot somewhere around there. And that is your A character. And then we're going to move on straight to B. And you want a pretty long stroke just straight across the top there. And one diagonal long stroke, kind of like this one. And then your dot, you're going to place down there, below the line here. All right, so it's pretty basic so far. So let's jump right into D. D, you want a big old character, kind of like a 7, filling up the whole thing, the whole line. And then you want a dot here at the top. And then starting at the top, you want to go about halfway down with the second 7 kind of mark. And moving on to E, we're going to hit the character that looks very similar, not super similar, but the placing of the dot is going to be key as it is very similar to B. Now as you're noticing, you're probably seeing, why aren't they straight lines? Why are they kind of 7? Why do they have little dots? If you look at the pillars in Skyrim, you actually see those dots, those marks, and I kind of try and resemble them as I'm writing, but it's really cool how the creators of the game, Bethesda, actually thought about how dragons would write. And so they actually took and fashioned it out of claws. So the marks you see are then bringing their claws down and marking, and then the little dots there are then poking at the marble. And I thought the way they just thought that part out was really cool. I just wanted to point that out, that these tails aren't just some fancy thing. I guess you can take them out if you want, but I don't think it would look as cool. But those are why they have little tails. And these tails right here are shorter, obviously, than the bigger thing. Now, on to E, as we were talking about, is very similar to B. You want this upper mark up here. You want the diagonal mark. Instead of putting the dot here, you want to put it in here, kind of where it is relative to the A, and right in here, and that is your E. And so you can see they're kind of similar, not super similar, easy to tell apart, but we will get to more complicated ones here soon. Now on F, you want to start from about the middle, make a medium shaped 7 there. You want a smaller one just a little bit above it. Make sure this one's small, medium, and then you're going to have a large one even higher than that coming down to the bottom. And so actually you want it to come past the bottom. So you have a little medium here, you got a small, and then you have this one, which is higher and also somewhat lower, and that's your F right there. And then your G here is kind of interesting. It resembles one of the special characters that we'll see in the next episode, but you want a kind of long mark across the middle. You see a lot of these shapes in most of the words, as a matter of fact. And then you want one coming down pretty much straight, just like that, and then you want to mark down there at the bottom of this tail. And H here, we want a dot right about a little bit higher than the middle. And then you want to start from the bottom with your tail end and go up, kind of pointing at your dot here. Kind of like this here. You don't want it to touch, but you want it kind of close to it. And then you just want one big old 7 right next to it. And this should actually probably be a little lower, just like that. So this comes up to the middle area. Now let's go ahead and look at this first column. If you don't have a pen and paper, make sure to grab it now and write these all down so you remember. It's going to take a lot of practice. Just write each one down maybe 10 times. Say its name out loud, it helps you remember it, and write it down maybe 10 times, just repeating it to yourself. Move on to the next one. After maybe 3 of them, start, once you finish with D, for instance, just start making knots. By the way, forgot to mention, you see that we did not put a C in here. You saw A, B, D. Well, why is there no C? In the dragon language, they actually don't involve a C in any of their words, and so they didn't need a character for C, so they did not make one. I have one. I made my own. You'll see that in the next episode, but that is why there is no C, and that's another thing I forgot to mention along with the pen and paper. But as I was saying earlier, you basically want to write these down, repeat them in your head, and then once you're done with like D, go A, just think of A, don't look at the character, see if you can remember it, A, B, D, and so on, and then move on to the next character, and then do them all in a row again. Should help you remember them, and be able to recall them when you decide to start making notes. Enough of that, let's get into I. Now I, you want to kind of start from the middle. It's going to be a small 7 kind of looking thing here. I don't know why I call them 7s, but it's kind of, looks like a 7. A little mark, a really little mark, and then you want a big one across the whole line right there, and then you want another little one at the top. And the reason you want these little is because it looks a lot like the S, and the smallness of these marks up in the top right and the left are going to be key to telling them apart. J here, I never really liked J, but it's kind of a medium mark there, a medium mark, my bad, a medium mark down, and then another medium mark on the right side there, kind of like that. This is probably my least favorite character out of all of them, but still pretty nice and easy to write. K is one of my favorites. I liked these next ones actually. I have an easy time remembering. These are probably the easiest to remember in my book. And you have just a big old line right across, one just like it over here. So these are big lines just like over in B and D, or B and E. And then you want a little mark just like that, and that's your K. And this should probably be more centered, not up at the top, but this is kind of supposed to be in the center of the page. And now we are moving on to L, and you want big old slash across, just like the other ones. And you want one right below it as well. And then you want to put a dot right between them at the very bottom end. And make sure these ones are long, because this one, the L looks like the P, but it is longer. And so the M, you want a big old mark just like that, and then 2 upside down ones, kind of medium-ish, just like that, and that should be your M right there. Now your N, you just want to put a dot there, and then just like K, except for instead of on top, it's going to be on the bottom, you want a big mark and a big mark with the dot right in the middle above them. And now O, we're going to have another big old mark right there, and then we're going to have 2 little marks right here. You want their tail ends to match up with the ends of this. So the bottom of this one will match up with the tip of this, and the bottom of this one match up with the end on that one. And that's because one of the special characteristics, I think it's UR, is actually very, very close to that, except for these come down farther. And I'll show and explain more in episode 2. And so now we're moving on to P, which looks a lot like L from up here, if you want to take a look at that. It looks a lot like this one, only it's associated at the very top, and they're very small marks. So you see you have small marks at the top versus huge marks in the center taking up the whole page, where the P is centered at the top and doesn't go past the middle of the page. And now Q, look at A over here. It's going to be basically just like that, except your tail end of this top piece is going to be longer and extend. Now, if you want to see this, it'll be that big mark, that piece right there, and instead of coming and touching right there, we actually want to make it a little bit more to the right and extend past it. Probably not that much, but just a bit, so you can tell that it is not the A. And so this one comes up near the top and stops before hitting it, and this one extends past it. And now we're going to do the R here, and basically you want a big old piece right there, and then right in the middle, you're gonna want somewhat medium-sized pieces, just like that. So it's kind of like the F over here, but the little pieces are on the right side instead of the left side. Now the S, as I was saying earlier, resembles the I very, very similarly. If you can recall, the I, these 2 pieces right here, are really small. On the S, you want to start from the very middle, make a medium size to the bottom, then take and do a big mark across the top to the bottom, and then the third one will be top to middle. So you want this piece to end right about where that one's starting. And so if you see here, you can see these extend past farther than the eyes do. And so the eyes are very short, don't come down to the bottom, doesn't come down to the middle, but this one comes down to the very bottom, this one comes to the middle. So those are very key, you have to pay attention to so that you don't mix up your I's and S's. And now your T's, you're just gonna have medium length ones to about the middle, two right next to each other just like that, and then just one bottom bar. Except these are supposed to be more centered, so kind of like that, except more centered. So as you can see, they're supposed to be in the center. And then the U is pretty nice. You got an upside down mark just like that, one of the same size but right side up, and then one going across the whole page. Just like that. So that one's another simple one that's very easy to remember. And then we have V here, which is gonna be kind of like this. You see it's a middle-sized mark going diagonally this way. Then we want a long mark going that opposite way and a really small mark right there. So right past, if this were to continue through, it would intersect with that. That's where you want it. You don't want it below it, you don't want it above it, you want it right there and that continued line. Now on W here, W, let me move this mark, is a lot like T. And so you have to be very careful with your T's and W's as well. You can see these T's, they're straight, both of them. Now on the W, you want your first one to be a medium size at a kind of angle. I made that sound look horrible. But at a kind of angle there, then you want a second one that's small, kind of above it. You can see they're kind of touching, it's pretty small. And then the bottom line. And so if you look at these two, you can see that they're very similar as to how they are written. And so you have to be careful when writing and reading in the language, as they can be mixed up very easily as well. And now your X is a very unique one. You got the bottom bar there. You got a medium one going that way. And then right next to the bottom of this mark is going to be a dot right there. And that is your X. Your Y is also fairly simple. You want it kind of in the middle. You want one going down. You want one going up. You want this one slightly below. You can see this one extends farther up the top and this one goes farther below. And then you want one that's bigger, not whole page like the U or the D. You don't want a whole page mark, but you want a kind of medium-ish one that goes slightly above this one and matches right about down below. So the Y is a little tricky, but it's pretty simple as well. And then finally for this episode, we have your Z. And your Z is probably the easiest one. You got a mark going about to the middle right there, and then you got one going all the way to the bottom, and then another one reaching the middle. So these two are actually supposed to be the same, and then this one's supposed to be longer right there. So that one's pretty simple. It's similar to one of the special characteristics as well, but it's not really simple. Not really similar. But that's about it for today. Sorry that one took so long. I was reading, it was about 13 minutes. I went on for a while. Hopefully the next one will be shorter. Thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment if you want to see more, because last time the series died after 2 episodes because I got bored with it and nobody was giving feedback until a year later. It started getting popular and I didn't care for it anymore. So make sure that you express that you want to see more, and I will definitely learn and make more videos. As I had forgotten everything, I had to relearn it all this morning. But if you want to see more, I will be definitely helping you guys out with more content. As I said, make sure to check out the Dovahzul translator on the Android market. If you know if it's on the Apple store or not, make sure to leave a comment below so that people know, because I don't know whether it is or not, because I don't have an Apple or iOS device. But that's definitely a really cool thing. Whoever made that, awesome. If you're the person who made it, you're cool, you're cool. Send me a message, you're awesome. Anyways, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. See you guys in the next episode.